Good morning and welcome everyone to this middle of December edition. It's December 11th here in 2021. Welcome to everyone out there on this Saturday morning. It's good to have you with us. How you doing, Marz? You're muted, buddy.
Oh
There you go.
no!
There you go.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How about yourself?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm all right.
That's
Um,
good. That's good.
Christmas time is here. It's in the air. It's December. It is the season of good cheer, the season of joy, hope, and love. And how you feeling about that? How
I
you
feel
how you
good,
how you
man.
dealing with it? How you coping in this holiday season here?
I feel good, man. I feel good because I know where my mindset is at. I know where my heart is at. I think that, like I was telling you earlier, I think I said it last week too, that I feel that we have commercialized. Neck is stiff, man. I think I woke up kind of stiff this morning. Um, just the commercialization of
Hmm.
Christmas as
Yeah.
is what bothers me. But from a personal standpoint, I feel good. I feel great. I feel a lot of joy. But then again, I'm joyful all the time. So it's not just this time of the season. I'm a joyful person
You are. You are.
by
I would
nature.
say that you're an optimistic person. You're a hopeful person. You do have a sense of joy, and you do have a sense of optimism. I think
Mhm.
of looking at things. But I was interested in what you had to say about it before we went on air here about
Yeah,
Christmas and how you differ a little bit from maybe what other people think and the way they deal with Christmas. Could you say a little bit more about
yeah,
that? Maybe I thought that was
yeah.
kind of interesting. I think people out there might appreciate that.
No, like I said, just the commercialization of it.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
remember like when Black Friday really got going really good. I went out a few times, and I remember a time when there were maybe five pallets of TVs. Like it could be a Samsung TV for could be originally $1,000, and they cut it down to like $400. And you have a line of people out the door. You have your list of the things that you want to get on that Black Friday,
Yeah, yeah.
and there used to
Hmm.
be enough product out there that maybe it was like I said, maybe it was 60 TVs or 100 TVs, and you have a line of like 500 people outside, and you get in, you go to the direction you want to go in, get into the line you want to get in, and it was pallets of a product. Now it seems like that big product that you might want, there's only like 5 items of it or 10 items.
Hmm.
So you
Hmm.
have 500 people in line. These people run to this line for this TV, and there's only five of them left or five of them available. This is the first day, like the store just opened. How you only
Yep.
have five? Or it can be something like that. And that just shows how companies have taken that and made and took advantage of these people, because what happens is you go in the store, the product that you want is gone.
Uh-huh.
What do? You start shopping for something else. You'll spend more money than you anticipated, because inside you're like, I waited 2 hours to get in, 3 hours to get in.
Yeah.
I'm going to, make the most out of this. And to me, it just takes the whole spirit of what these specials are supposed to be, these deals. And also it takes the joy out of a person trying, you wanted to get this special gift for somebody and it's no longer there. And so you tend to substitute. You're not getting really what you want. You're spending more money. Like I said, it's just, I know it just turned me off from all that. I have not shopped on Black Friday in probably 5 or 6 years to went out physically shopping for Black
Yeah.
Friday.
I haven't been physically shopping in probably at least that amount of time, maybe even longer.
Mm,
I started doing some shopping, like if I'm on a trip somewhere.
yeah,
Um, but in like this summer when I was on a trip to Arizona, it was in September. I was looking for things for Christmas because
mhm,
um, but typically I'll go online and get what I want and get what I need because I want
right,
something specific. And shopping has changed and the whole it's changed the sort of holiday culture.
yeah,
Amazon. has changed the sort of holiday culture when you can look on your phone and you, with a couple of clicks, you can find what you need, and in a couple of days it arrives at your
Right.
doorstep, and then you hide it away from the rest of your family and you wrap it in seclusion in your room or something like that. And
Hmm.
that's it. So like shopping live, like the big Black Friday sales, the big box stores, as they say, the big retail stores are still hurting. I'm not sure what they if they've ever sort of recovered from that, if they know what to deal with it. This
Yeah.
year, a lot of people are talking about like supply chain issues and this and that, and they're blaming
Hmm.
blaming things like it's almost ruining their Christmas in a way. And I don't really feel that. Um, I think I'm like you. Christmas is about much more than about getting things and shopping and about gifts. And I've started to just what I get my family is less about um, what we're opening and more about time spent with family. So, just a little bit of insight about us, what we've decided to
Right.
do the last few years is get each other like tickets to go see things like a concert,
Hmm. Right.
a lot of concerts or a musical or a stage play or something like that. And we'll have tickets to go see things like later in the year. So we don't really have a lot of things that we open up on Sunday morning.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, Christmas morning. So that's changed for us, and over the years, and we like it like that. We like it like that, and
Right.
it's just another thing I wanted to bring up about Christmas time. It just seems that this year there's just kind of a uh, the spirit of Christmas just isn't is less this year for me. I don't know
Hmm.
if you feel that. It just feels like that way for me. Maybe it's just me though. Maybe it's just me. I don't know
Hmm.
if other people feel that way out there. Um, but we have Christmas decorations up, but we didn't put our tree up yet. Our tree is
Hmm.
not up yet. So
Hmm.
if you can believe that. So
Well, it's like I said earlier, the because we have been so removed from celebration of what this holiday season is supposed to represent, um, that all the other distractions in our life, everything from the COVID epidemic, pandemic,
yep.
all the way through the political issues that we have, on through overall ugliness of all citizens, that how we treat each other.
Yeah.
So all that has rolled into one ball, and now the holiday season's here, where you're supposed to be joyous,
Yeah.
and people tend to not be joyous because they planted all these seeds of division in all these other areas.
Yes,
So the
that you put
people,
it very well. Yes. Hmm.
so the people that even the people that you don't particularly care for in the past, you will still, hey, how you doing? Happy holidays, or you will still have some type of cordial relationship with that person. That's not the same anymore,
Hmm.
and it's
Exactly.
not. And to me, it was because we never focused as a country on what, I'm not saying never. It has diminished over time what this time of the year is supposed to represent, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
Greg, longtime listener and contributor to our show. Um, I agree with him. People become more mean over the years, just as you're saying here, Mars.
Yeah.
And like you say, are we supposed to just flip a switch when it comes to December and Christmas time? It's like now be all of a sudden be nice to each other when we've been yelling at each other and things become contentious and culture wars are being promoted on either side. Are we supposed to just flip a switch and then be nice to each other all of a sudden?
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, but like I said, it has diminished for me from a standpoint of the commercialization of it. That now I sit back and I'm like, this is who people were all the time. This is who they are. And so if you allow all these other things to distract you celebrating this time of the season like you should, you have to do a self-evaluation. I
Hmm.
haven't changed this year. This time of the year has not changed from last year for me.
Okay.
The only thing that has changed for me is that we're not out and about as much because of the pandemic.
Okay.
But my viewpoint of how I celebrate this time of the year has been, has been the same. And we were just talking about it recently, and me and my wife, and she was like, "Yeah, I see what you're." She understands exactly what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. I think for her, a lot of things because we're away from home, from our families. They living here in Texas is that I know she gets homesick a lot quicker, and this
Oh,
time of the year you want to be around family.
yes.
You want to be around family, and I agree with that. We are planning on going home this year,
Oh, so you're
and
going to go to Ohio?
yeah, we're planning on being up there. Probably spend about 4 or 5 days and come on back. My thing is, I have refused in the past to go home in the wintertime because I left Ohio because of the wintertime. you know, so I didn't want to go back. I was like, I'm not going back in the winter. I'll wait till the summer's better, till the weather's better. But yeah, I'll be up there, man, and we're gonna tackle some of this Cleveland snow if it happens to snow
If
during
it
the holiday.
happens,
I'm
if it happens.
I'm praying for no snow, but and it's odd that Denver has not seen any snow this year. Have you heard about that?
Uh, no, I haven't heard anything about that. I haven't seen.
Record
I know
breaking.
that there was a lot of snow in the Northeast in New England area.
Yeah,
Um, I talked to a friend yesterday that said that in Vermont they had like 20, something ridiculous, like 24 inches or 30 some
yeah.
inches, which I was like, really? That's like a yard of snow. And
Well,
so, I mean, it's weird right now, as James says, it's 60 degrees here in Ohio. I look outside, it's gray, it's rainy, so it doesn't feel like December necessarily, but
okay, I stand corrected. Okay, after 232 snowless days, Denver snaps the streak with Friday flakes.
there you go. Finally, Denver's getting some snow.
Yeah, and just flakes, not even a snowstorm. It's just some flakes, just a few flakes. But yeah, man, that was the first time they ever seen a season of no snow. You know, that's like it was record breaking for them.
Greg says that the thought of sharing, generosity, service for others is dissipated into oblivion. Um,
So what would make it? So what would it take for it to come back? For us to get back on track. I'm not even saying even for the holiday season. I'm talking about in general. What does it take?
we need to get over our partisanship. I think that's a big driver of this. I think when you turn on your TV and even like morning talk shows, they're taking sides and they're partisan. And not that we can't talk about the issues that are important to us, but we have to find a way in this country to coexist. We have been at each other's throat to the point of like the other side is the enemy. The other side is um, dangerous to the country. One side calls the other side communist. The other side calls them all insurrectionist. Now I do have a side, and I'm not saying that I'm innocent in all this, but somehow we need to be able to talk to each other. And I can't. This week was it Lauren Boebert was sending out Christmas cards of her family with semi-automatic rifles standing next to the Christmas tree, and it's like, what kind of a message does that send as a public figure when you're on the
Yeah,
news and the story is about you and your family standing in front of the Christmas tree with some, with weapons, with
yeah.
rifles, and you're like, well, that's all
I
well and
didn't.
good. That's you and your family. That's your private business and things like that. But then, um, but it's emblematic, I think, of where we are in this country about um, do we believe that the holidays should be promoting peace and goodwill? How does that promote peace and goodwill?
Yeah.
To me, it just doesn't.
Any other time, that photo would not have been bad. From a sense of if you want to show a photo with your family and your firearms, that wouldn't
Yeah,
be bad. My issue with I had a like a little bit of a conversation with someone yesterday. I mean this week about that particular picture, and his opinion about it was, well, the that's their right. They have an option to do
yeah,
that.
they do.
And my thing was, it was stupid. It was stupid for the fact that the time, the time of the timing of the photo.
Yeah,
The photo was right after the shooting in Michigan. So for a politician to do that was completely stupid, in my opinion. What and the thing about it is, what is that image telling you? Or what message is that image sending? What is that sending to the public? You're smiling with your handguns after a devastating shooting in our country. This is not about Second Amendment rights. This photo it has nothing to do with Second Amendment rights. It has nothing to do with anything with our Constitution. It's complete ignorance, in my opinion, just because of the timing of it. If this
Yeah,
was in the middle of
I
the
totally agree
summer
with you.
when nothing is going on, it would have been fine. I just see a bunch of people here, to me, exhibiting a privilege of saying, I can hold my guns up at any time I want, and it's okay. And it's
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
okay,
Yeah,
in my
it's
opinion.
not. It's not. I mean, what is that? What you want to promote to your friends and family? Is that what you want to promote to your friends
Just
and
the
family?
timing of
I
it,
mean,
just the
it's just
timing
like,
of it. And I've seen plenty of family photos with the wife, father, the husband, the wife, and their kids with their firearms. I've seen that. It
yeah,
is no problem with me. It was the timing of that particular picture.
yeah. Joe Elder says the timing is horrible.
Yeah.
James Barry says we are way beyond the Second Amendment. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the message would be. I hate to put words in their mouth. I don't know what the message is. The message
What
is
if
going
you
to
would?
be like, here I am. This is what we believe, and we are privileged enough to do it. Um, First of all, that's got to be expensive to buy all that. I mean, is
Well,
this their new present or something like that? Is this
yeah,
is
but
this what
see,
they
that's
buy each
not
other for
important.
Christmas? Or
See, that's not really important to me on
okay,
that
okay.
end. How much they spend and how much it costs, that's irrelevant. I mean, I just take it this way.
Is it
After
a
that
statement of
school shooting,
privilege though?
let me give you an example. If that was after a school shooting, and that was a Middle Eastern family showing a holiday picture, what would the narrative have been?
It is after a school shooting. We had a school shooting in Michigan last week. So
No, no, no. If that was a Middle Eastern family
oh,
with the
okay.
same look,
Hmm.
what would the narrative have been, or what would the criticism have been? It wouldn't have been a good look. And so I'm just saying that we have to be conscious of what we do. We can't just say because I have a right to do something, oh, it's okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Your rights comes with the responsibility. That's all I'm saying. And that's for everything. I don't care whether it's freedom of speech or whatnot. I believe freedom of speech is a good thing, but it comes with a responsibility.
Yes,
Just like on our show here, if we say something crazy on our show, we're responsible.
we never do
Really.
that.
If one of our guests attacks us because we said something crazy or insensitive, we have the freedom of speech to say it, but we have to sit up here and also stand firm and saying, okay, I apologize, or no, that wasn't good on my end. Be transparent, authentic, and be real. Don't be fake.
So, what do you make of the Fox Christmas tree being burned?
I didn't hear anything about it.
You didn't even hear anything about it? Really?
I haven't heard
That
anything
was
about
big
it.
news. I believe it was Thursday. They talked about it all day in Fox News. And somebody, apparently a homeless person, a man, um, set fire to their Christmas tree right downtown in New York City and right outside of their studio. And they were using it um, as a bit of a political football, I believe, because they were talking about how the crime rate in New York City and how leftist this and that. And, you know, but really it's probably not a political statement that's because this person was homeless. So there is a greater chance that this person was probably just um, vandalizing something, might have had a mental health issue, because a lot of homeless people do. So
Right.
they burned the Christmas tree down, and it was being used as a way to say that people hate Christmas, and that who would burn down a Christmas tree? Why would somebody do that, right?
Okay.
Um, an
Oh,
isolated
here it is. I
incident,
got it
James
right there. There
says.
it is.
Yep.
There you go. Wow.
But Fox
That's the first
Fox
I've
really
seen that.
ran with it. Fox really ran with it. Now the next day they started putting together another Christmas tree. So it's a huge Christmas tree. It's like I don't know if they're trying to compete with Rockefeller Center, but there you
I got
are.
a question for you. For I understand, to destroy anyone's property is wrong.
Yes,
That's completely wrong. I
yes.
agree with that. Does it also, if Fox News ran with it that wild with it, like you say they did, does it mean that they put more emphasis on the tree than the purpose of the season?
Uh,
Because if you think about it, the tree has nothing to do with why we celebrate it, the holiday.
yeah, I mean,
It's not the tree.
one of the guests was saying that it had to do with that the burning of the Christmas tree was like a statement against freedom and a statement against Hanukkah. And it's like, really? Hanukkah? Um, it doesn't have anything to do with Hanukkah. It doesn't have anything to do with um, our freedom. Somebody
Okay.
vandalized the Christmas tree.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a statement against freedom, or it's not an act by Antifa. Okay,
Right.
it's not something that was political, most likely. So they're just
Okay.
they're just talking, and they're just putting out
Okay.
all this stuff and blaming it on uh, people and the left and people like that who are apparently not tough on crime, right? Because there's this big crime spree, and crime is up, and of course it's got to be someone's fault. So we're going to blame the people who are in power, who are the Democrats
Okay.
right now. So that's
Okay.
that's the way they spun it. That's what they were spinning it as. So
Yeah. So, what are some of our topics we're going to hit on today?
well, um, we have some story. Every day I seemed lately in the last this is the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's like every day I wake up and there's always some story that you're just like, what the heck is going on in the world?
Right.
And you're just like, it just shakes your head. It's either tragic or bizarre, or you're like, I can't believe this is going on in the
Right.
United States, kind of thing. So um, there was a story this week that caught my attention about people being forced by gunpoint into working. So
Okay.
basically, like slaves. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We have a little local news story about
Okay.
that. You and I, we shared a story about a shooting in Maple Heights,
Yeah.
Ohio, close from where we're both from.
Yeah.
That kind of struck me as like, wow, because of the ages involved. And I want to talk
Yeah.
about violence again. And do we have a violence problem? Is it a gun problem? Is it
Yeah.
a problem with us in our hearts?
Yeah.
You had some things as well that you brought this morning with us for
Well, it
us.
was the one that caught my heart this morning that I didn't know about was the deadly storm that ripped through the Midwest yesterday. Um, 50 people in Kentucky alone died, from a
Yes.
tornado. So that kind of caught me this morning because I didn't know anything about the storm last night. And that was
Hmm.
one of the first news things I saw this morning. So, although we may plan all week about news stories, that Saturday morning when you wake up, just like we did a couple weeks back when we woke up on Saturday morning rather, and we heard about the tragedy in Houston from the Astroworld event with Travis Scott.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
woke up like, wow, what happened? And so, those
Hmm.
things just trigger us to think like, wow, um, even while we're asleep, things are happening, whether good or bad, things are happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And that one just caught me this morning because like I said, I had no idea there was a storm. And then to know that, that death toll is rising. It was 50 when it was reported, but there's like looking up close to maybe 100 people may die because of the storm.
Wow.
And it's tragic. So yeah,
That's a
that was
lot.
one
That's a
of
lot of
them.
people.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. And then you have the other issue is the Kim Potter trial. They're in court now, dealing with that with the death of Dante Wright.
Yeah.
Um, I have mixed feelings about that. Um, I can't stand when you see these incidents happen when
Hmm.
people are being killed and the police have a job to do. They have a job to protect, and then you have the instances where um, why are people running from the police right now?
Yes.
In these type of cases, is it that they're that scared? Um, are people worried about what's going to happen if they don't run?
Hmm.
There has
Okay.
to be a
Okay.
better. I spoke to a police officer. We had him on our show back last year. Actually, our first
Yes.
episode was
Hmm.
with a police officer, and we both had agreed that it's best that the police and the community have more transparent and real conversations. The police need to educate the
That's
community
one thing that
on,
we should talk a little bit more in depth on. That's intriguing. Go
yeah,
ahead. Go
the
ahead.
police need to educate the community on what the law is. There are rights that you have as a citizen, and there are rights you don't have as a citizen. And I think a lot of us don't know those boundaries, and there are things that the police need to know from the community's perspective,
Okay.
their fears, their concerns. It's not always about, well, you were wrong, you're being arrested, this and that and other. You got to really narrow some things down of why are these things happening?
Yes.
Why are some of these things happening? And also where police officers truly need to start to get to know their community like they once did at one
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
They don't know their community that they're policing. So I think a
We
lot of
should
that has to do with it.
we should have another show where we talk to police and we invite some police officers
Yeah,
on and talk with them because
yeah,
we have some questions that you brought up in my mind that I'd like to dissect. We
yeah,
have a guest this morning that is joining
yes.
us. She's been a longtime listener, um, and we have grown in our friendship a little bit here. She lives in my hometown here of Galion, Ohio.
Okay,
We both have worked in the after school religious education. I did it for a few years, and she has done it for now, I believe, 4 years now, I believe, Leanne,
okay.
here in our school system. So she is a after school religious education teacher. I know that you also teach Sunday school at your church. Is that correct, Leanne?
That is correct. Good morning, guys.
Good
Good
morning, and
morning.
Can
thank
you
you
hear
for
Welcome,
me?
joining
welcome.
us. Yes, it's
I'm
good
going to
to
say
have you. Now, go
thank
ahead,
you
Leanne.
for
Yes, thank you
being
for having me.
thank you for being a supporter of the show, and enjoy. I enjoy seeing your comments and reacting to the stories every week. We thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing the show.
So
You're
you've had
welcome.
some insightful comments on the show before, and we wanted to get you on the show and kind of pick your mind a little bit. So specifically, and I know this is a big question, um, but how do you think of, because you're a person of faith, you're a person that your faith is very important to you. How does your faith inform the way you believe about things, and how does that manifest in your life and in your lifestyle?
Well, I follow the teaching of Jesus, which is, love God and love people. I don't think that breaking it down into other categories is smart. I don't think that discriminating against someone because they believe differently than you is acceptable. I have had a really hard time with a lot of the people in my church because they do not view things in the same light. They're very, pro-Trump and anti-gay and just very hateful. It's been very difficult over the last 5 years, I'll say. It's been a big shift in what I thought Christianity represented, what I've always believed it to represent.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Has
I got a
any?
question.
Go ahead.
Can I follow up with that? Because of that, do you feel that we need to be out more from a on the street ministry standpoint of really getting to know people better versus just going to church? And I think we've got comfortable with just going to church and
Absolutely.
not in our communities where we're really getting to know each other, and not only knowing each other but also having those tough conversations where we can hold each other accountable. Those one-on-one
Definitely.
conversations is where the rubber meets the road, and you can't hide behind because these other people support the same belief in a building. But on the street, it's just me and you one-on-one, and it's like you don't have that, that bully pulpit basically.
Yes. I think it's very important to be out there and actually living the way that you claim.
Yeah,
You can't say I love God and I'm a Christian and then at the same time be representing yourself in a very different light. I think that's crazy. And of course that would turn people off from Christianity because it's like, ooh, that's what kind of people they really are. Why would I want to associate with that?
So James Battle says Sunday is the most segregated day in America.
It is
I
definitely.
agree.
It is
I
definitely.
agree. I agree.
So a question, follow up with that. So I'm wondering, as we're talking here about having conversations with people, are you able to have conversations with people at church who, as you mentioned, have different views, and there's been some conflict there? Are you able to have any resolution with that? Are you able to like get along and work together? Or?
I mean, we are able to. It's. I'm not going to allow somebody. Facebook has been a main. Most people have no problem putting whatever they feel like up on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I will call out, if they put up something that's untrue. And then when I do see them in person, it's kind of a little awkward at that point because, because I don't agree with them. I don't typically put my opinion about anything out there. I just stick with the facts. But that they still seem to have a bit of an issue, and I've had some issues with people not appreciating how I do things.
Right.
Okay.
That's not good, especially for people that you're close with or people that you know that will. I call it 0 to 60. They either at 0 with you where it's calm, or they're at 60 where they're at total at odds with you, without any type of dialogue or conversation to understand each other.
And most of them, it seems like they have their way of the world figured out, and they don't care to understand anybody else's perspective. That's not their problem.
And that's the cultural conditioning we've talked about in the past. That cultural conditioning of, this could be from your upbringing. It can be just because you just don't know, but you'll believe what the next person is telling you. And you say, wow, okay, that's about right. And you never really research on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said, you mentioned calling people out on Facebook or something on social media when you see something that is false or that bothers you. I used to do a lot of calling out. I'd see something and I felt a need to comment because it was so egregious or so false or so ridiculous even. And I had to stop doing that. So I spend much less time on Facebook now. But people still remember what I might have said, or so I gained this reputation of being an agitator, because I'm calling simply because I'm asking a question or calling somebody out on something that is BS. What? And I used to tell, because people used to ask me like, well, why do you do that? Because you're not going to change your mind. And I said, well, I think it's important to call it out. So do you think it's important to call people out then, and why?
Oh, absolutely. If something is untrue in somebody, if it's racist or if it's untrue, those, if it's just your stupid opinion, that's on you. But if it is inappropriate and untrue, then yes, it's absolutely. I've called a couple of older white women out on some posts that were horrifying. And they were like, oh, I don't see it as racist. And it's like, well, then you need to step back and look at it differently, because it most certainly is. And in a couple of those cases, people have stopped posting things like that. I don't know if it changed their mind or if they just hid me from their posts like that, but I hope that it could, if somebody that you care about and cares about you is saying, hey, you're kind of coming at that from the wrong place, I would hope that would make a difference. I try not to do it hatefully or angrily. I feel angry sometimes as I'm doing it, but I try not to put that off to people. But I think it's very important to call out.
Definitely. Think about it. What I've learned from calling people out, you may not change the mind of the person that you're calling out, but because so many people are on social media, other people's lives are impacted and changed because of your statement or you calling someone out. I've seen where people may inbox me separately like just a one-on-one conversation, and we'll have some dialogue because they're like, wow, I didn't know that, and that person was extremely wrong, and I'm glad you said something, or something like that. So you are reaching other people. You may not realize it, but when you stand up against
Yes.
what I call evil, something that's
Yes.
completely wrong, you are helping those who maybe not feel they have a voice, or
Hmm.
no one's listening, or sometimes it's just really to just give them confirmation that they were thinking the right thing, and you validated that by your statement. I've been so many times people have contacted me to agree with that, to tell me these things. you know
Jeffrey brings up the separation of church and state issue, that it must be kept in place. Keeping religion out of politics or basing laws on religious
Hmm.
beliefs is important for a fair and just society. Um, that is something that people throw around, for good or for ill. In fact, sometimes that don't have your religion in my business or in my body, don't have your religion in my house or my bedroom or in the school. Yet, how can we apply our faith when people into life, into what we do during the week, if people keep throwing this separation of church and state in our face and saying, well, we need to leave your religion out of it. For me, my religion informs what I believe. So I can't just set that aside. Can you say a little bit more about that, or if you can?
I would say absolutely that religion and government should not have any parts in each other. We are all, the government is of the people, right? We are
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
individual people, and God gave us free will. So we don't all follow the same God that I follow. There are thousands of other religions out there. And I don't think
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
fair for any one governing body to say, oh, well, this is what I personally believe. So therefore you can't do X, Y, and Z because it goes against my beliefs. What about their beliefs? I think that we should definitely separate religion from church. I don't think pastors, have, I don't think it's their place to tell their congregants how to vote. I don't think that belongs. I think that you should be my spiritual leader, not my political leader.
Mm.
So I think it's very important to separate the two things. And I live my life according to my beliefs. But I don't think it's right for me to just say, "Oh, my beliefs are right, yours are wrong," and follow what I think, and that's that. That's not right in my opinion.
Many
well,
people. Go ahead.
one of the things that the problem we have with that whole separation of church and state is that when it was established,
Hmm.
our if you look up like just the beginning of this country, God was part of their. They used the word saying God was what led them in establishing this country, whether it's agreeable or not. I'm not debating that. I'm saying it was there. They talked about it. It was came out of the leaders, the forefathers of this country, out of their mouth.
Hmm.
It was in their writings. But then in 1833 is when they de-established it, religion from government. So you have over 100 to 200 years of this country being formed using God as whether it was used as a tool to discriminate against,
Hmm.
or whether it was used for
That's
control
it.
and power, whether it was used for profit and gain. God was in the forefront from their perspective in the first 200 years. In 1833, you say, well, we're going to take that out. How do you completely do that when it was there? That's the problem
Well,
we're having right now.
but but even like Thomas Jefferson, he was one of our founding fathers. He was an
Yeah,
atheist. Many of
yeah,
the founding fathers did not believe in God. They used it
yeah.
as a tool to try to
Hmm.
appease the voters, if you will. It was the
Yeah,
same game
yeah,
that we're playing at this point. It
exactly.
had,
Agree.
it was just about getting the people on their side.
Yeah,
So I think that it wasn't actually a part. It was more of just like wording and a game of trying to get people on
hmm,
your side.
right. I totally agree with you. That's what I'm saying. It was used in language then, then you take it out of language. These are 400 years later, we're still having this debate of what's allowed and what's not allowed. So, and when we have multiple religions in our country now, of all kinds of religions,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to bring that religious perspective to the political table, whether
Uh-huh.
you're an elected official or whether you're a citizen. We're not going to avoid it. It's not going to leave. It's not going away. It's there. I
Absolutely.
mean, and so we have to learn how to navigate around it and allow, trying to put the right wording together, allow your perspective to be heard, but yet bring some type of common ground when it comes to the table of making decisions in the political field. It has to be respected. Everybody's religion has to be respected. But how do we bring that common ground to making decisions within the political field? I mean, when you saw, what was it, Ilhan being criticized
Yes.
about her
That's
head wrap,
horrible. That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
that was from another elected official.
Hmm. That's a
That's
religious
uncalled
tolerance
for.
issue, or in this case, intolerance
Yeah,
issue. That it's being,
intolerance.
we desperately need religious tolerance in this country. That's not saying that we can't disagree or that we can't practice our religion the way we want to practice it, or the practice or worship God the way we want to worship God. Um, we need to have a respect that some people are going to disagree with things, with our way of worshiping God, and that's okay. It somehow the narrative has changed. Like, my religious freedom is going to say that I can discriminate at my place of business, or
Mm-hmm.
my religious freedom means that I can say things about your religion or your headdress or um, your church. And that's not religious freedom. People need to understand religious freedom has to do with you. No one in this country is stopping you from going to church. I've never
Yeah.
been
Right.
stopped from going to church in this country. I've never been stopped from praying in school in this country.
No.
Yet somehow it's become this political football that people bat around and punt around. And I just, it's a fine line in this country. Um, you mentioned the separation church and state. One of the things that I've come across and I've been criticized for is it's because I mention things in church, because I will mention people, a school shooting, or I'll mention people that suffer from COVID, or I'm mentioning the migrants at the border, or I'm mentioning that there's people protesting in the streets, and we want to pray for peace. Just because I'm even mentioning these things in church, I say we want to pray for the safety of people that are gathering, exercising their rights. We want to we want to pray for coming together, and we want to pray for peace. In the Middle East, something that happened in a foreign country. Just by mentioning that, I've been accused of being political, and I don't separate church and state.
I think that's completely different. I think that's caring for people. When I
Yeah.
say, as far as separating church and state, like a pastor saying, you need to vote for this person so we can get rid of abortion.
Right.
That's
Okay.
that's different. Or if you're making laws, I don't believe in abortion, so you can't have one.
Right.
That is not okay. That, in my opinion, that
No.
is where I feel the separation. As far as praying for people that are protesting, absolutely. Jesus called us to love our neighbors, to love the people that pray for those who persecute us. We
Yes.
are called to be different and show our love differently. So I think if you have such a strong stance against it, the people over in the Middle East, they're just sinners, or we don't need to worry about them. That's not doing what you're told, and nobody's going to take you, or nobody's going to change their mind.
Yeah.
If we're trying to bring people into knowing Jesus, nobody's going to change their mind because you had an awful thing to say.
Yeah.
That's good.
That brings me to this question of the disparity within churches on social issues, the difference of how you have, if we're all believing that we had a Savior that came here to lead, direct, guide, teach, and show us a way of living, how can, regardless of our political affiliations, how can we see social issues differently? Like if we see someone murdered, or we see an issue of safety, or any of these topics that we argue about or debate daily, why did the church see it more differently than anyone else in the world? We're split within the church on
That's a good question.
issues that we should be viewing basically from the same lens. And we see it differently. And I'm like, how? That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, like, even I give like the example we had earlier about the picture with the family with the firearms in their hand. No one disagrees that they have a right to do it. My disagreement is the timing of it was just horrible after a school shooting.
Yeah.
How could a church person, another member of the church community, and I not see that lens the same? That it's not good timing, that is insensitive, and is not showing any type of compassion or love of humanity by posing in that picture just because you have a right to. And I've had that debate with people who claim to, be Christians.
I don't think that any of that has anything to do with their faith. I think it's they want the attention on themselves, and they are going completely against. They're not being humble. They're not being compassionate. They're just trying to use something to get some focus over on themselves to enhance their career or their pocketbook or whatever. I think people are claiming evangelicals or Christianity, and they are nothing of the sort. They are not following the same Christ that I know. They're not going with anything that he taught. So I think that just Christianity gets thrown around a lot in this country, at least.
I agree.
In your school setting, have you run across the same sort of conflicts that you have in your church setting?
Somewhat because of the small town that we're in. It's it's a small conservative town, and so yes, and that's why I find it extremely important to teach the kids that we love God, we love people. People are going to be different than us. People are going to think different than us, but that doesn't matter. We are accountable for ourselves and not anybody else. It's not our job to make sure that Tom, Dick, or Harry gets to heaven. It's our job to make sure I get to heaven and to spread God's love to everyone that comes into my path. And that doesn't necessarily mean preaching to them. It means loving them. It means if you need a sandwich, here, take half of mine. It's, it's about so much more than just words. So yes, I think in the school system, a lot of the parents, even though they may not go to a church, they have those same ideals.
Okay.
How's it difficult for you, Leanne, who teach, I would say, would you call it biblical studies, or what is the type of teaching that you do? Your after school
Religious education.
Religious education.
Yes, I call it Bible Club.
Can you say a little bit more about that for our guests, so that they? I
have a question about that. I have a question about that first. How difficult is it for you to teach these students? And Darren has told me a little bit about your community, because you teach in your community, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How difficult is it for you to teach in your community, your studies, knowing the thing that you believe, what you're compassionate about, and knowing that some of these students go back home and hear sometimes totally opposite of what your compassion is? Is that difficult? And how do you reason with those students?
I just think it's important to just keep saying, you're going to hear negative things. You're going to have bad things happen to you. But I think it's important to just keep reminding them that we are to love one another. And that's where it really needs to end. It needs to start and end there. It can't be a but or an exception. We just have to love people.
Mm.
Yeah, that's difficult. It's difficult
very
when
much.
you're watching, when you're looking in the eyes of these students, and you're like, "Wow, I know what they're going home to." And I used to teach in a school also music, but I had students, I would say, on the opposite spectrum where they were majority Black students, and they can see something going on in society, and they would get this anger, and they would like categorize or generalize who their target is, like for their comments. And I have to tell them that, you can't look at all people because this one officer was white shooting a Black kid, for instance. And you can't throw your hate at all white people because of this. And I had to really have these sit down conversations with them of how they manage their emotion, how they manage how they see things. Don't allow the media or your peers to rile you up into something that can cause you to do something stupid. And that's where I'm seeing the opposite side now, especially here in Texas, with some of the youth here in Texas and the things they're doing. I'm like, where are they learning this stuff from? And it's just like a flip flop. I'm like, are these teachers really spending time with these students and teaching them how to manage their emotion and what they're seeing on TV and through the rhetoric of their parents sometimes, everything.
Yeah.
As a teacher, it's hard.
It's very hard. And I think that's why a lot of people shy away from it and don't. It's easier to just not even acknowledge than it is to try to come up with a solution or a way to make anything better. So I think a lot of teachers, no, I don't think they address things. I think they just ignore that whole part of the world.
Huh.
And that silence is more deadly, actually.
Absolutely. Because then there's students that are feeling a certain way, and if it's like almost like, wait, are my feelings valid? Is it okay that I feel like this? Is this normal? Is this right? And if nobody's validating your feelings and saying, yeah, that was a really crappy thing that happened, and I'm sorry that you feel that way, like, that's important. Just showing compassion for one another, I think. And I think a lot of people are so self-involved, they're not concerned with how anyone else is feeling.
Wow. Yeah. Something.
Greg has a question here about what you do. He says, is religious education the same as theology, and how does it differ?
So I would say what I am doing, as far as I've got, kindergarten through 9th graders. And it's broken up over 3 different classes. So as far as religious education, it's more of just, teaching through the Bible in essence. And with the older kids, we have a lot of amazing conversations, and they have a lot of different questions that come up. But what it started as, so I guess, yes, that is kind of theology in that sense. But what it started as was just a teaching of the Bible, an introduction to who God is and how God works in your life. But as the kids, progress through the class over the years, we have some really interesting conversations, and they try to understand why do all these terrible things happen if God loves us, and it's really interesting to see how the kids think of things and rationalize what's going on around them.
Definitely.
Yeah, I hear that a lot about people who want to debate about the existence of God is, why does God allow all these bad things to happen?
Yeah, that's the big question.
And I try to tell them it's not really about why God allowed things to happen. It's really about us molding ourselves to be more like him in a way of his character. And the thing about his character is love. God didn't cause people to do crime. People do crime on their own. People are influenced by negative things in our life to do crime. In my reality, Satan is real.
Absolutely. So, this world is the devil's world.
Right.
This is not God's world.
There's not in my opinion, people will want to make anybody the scapegoat. So for them saying God allowed these things, he's the scapegoat and takes the responsibility. Instead of taking responsibility off of yourself or the others that are doing things, you want to blame God for allowing it to happen instead of saying, but why didn't this person have the discipline not to do it?
Right.
You know, or why didn't you have the discipline not to do it? And that revolves right back into where we are today in 2021, the lack of accountability in all parts. You know, people having a lack of accountability. As much as we say we want it, we lack accountability. God gave us the freedom of choice, not removal consequences of it. Yeah, totally agree, Greg. Totally agree.
So how do you answer that question about just for maybe it'll help somebody out there? How do you answer the big question of like why do bad things happen to good people? And
my
why...
go-to is this world does not belong to God. And the Bible tells us in this world you will have trouble. It tells us bad things will happen to us. But it also tells us that God will be with us throughout each of those different struggles or circumstances. So, you know, there's evil in the world, and that's what it is. It's that just because we have a relationship with Christ does not mean it's going to all be butterflies and rainbows. Bad things will happen, and we just have to cling tight to doing the best that we can and loving people and doing what we know is right by what God taught us. So that's typically my go-to. If you have a better one, let me know.
No, that's pretty much what I tell people. I just wanted to have that heard on the show, and so thank you for that.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
During Christmas time, we were talking earlier about Christmas and maybe about like how Christmas has changed. Do you have like any family traditions or things that you do on Christmas that might be unique, or something that you pass down to your kids? You know, whatever it is it, you know, singing Christmas carols in the car, drinking eggnog at midnight on Christmas Eve, or is there something that's special to you guys?
We do the candlelight services and whatnot, and then for Christmas morning, I think our most original tradition is there's a scavenger hunt. So the presents are all wrapped under the tree, but nothing is labeled. And there's a scavenger hunt to discover whose wrapping paper is whose. And so that's kind of our only original tradition. In that sense. That's and cool. Then, you know, it always ends up being behind the picture of Jesus. And we then, you know, discuss how, you know, and that's another thing that I'm big with teaching my kids is that, you know, Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. And this is when we're honoring and remembering him coming into the earth. But that's not when he actually came. And, you know, I like to keep the historical sense, and Jesus was not a white man. And, you know, I want it to be true, because I've seen people be shocked at, you know, what? Jesus wasn't born on December 25th? What do you mean? He wasn't white? So I just think, you know, that's our, I guess, tradition.
Yeah. Good. I've seen that conflict a lot on Facebook lately, you know, the ethnicity of Jesus and what he looked like. And when you look at all the characteristics and where he was at during his life, why is that even a debate?
Right.
And then you look at, I know why it's a debate, but that was like a rhetorical question. But if you look at all the pictures that started off with his image, that's why it stuck. And now you have to try to retrain people and re-educate people, and people are resistant for re-education because like this is what I've always grown to know. And I remember this person that I went to school with, she, you know, inboxed me on the side, you know, I have these sidebar conversations. And she said that she went to church and she started looking at the pictures and it like hit her like boom, like a reality hit, like, wow.
Yeah.
Why are all these pictures like this when that's not where they were from? They don't look like they're not supposed to look like that.
They don't really
And
look
that
like
was her
that, yeah.
reality. And she grew up from like preschool, going through Bible study at this church. All the way now, she's a 50-year-old woman.
With
Like,
white images of Jesus.
yeah, and it was like, it never crossed her mind. And I look at myself. I grew up with the question from early age. I'm like, that don't make sense.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as a young kid, when you first learn about geography, you're like, that doesn't make sense. And I have to, then you walk around with the acceptance. This is what, not that you have to accept it, but this is what the world acceptance is in America, you know, and it's a struggle. But then I look at you, I'm like, you know, and I commend you for teaching your kids the right way, although we never know what he actually looked like.
Right, and the Bible was pretty specific about not knowing, us not knowing.
Right, but we have an idea. We have an idea, and we don't push that idea. We just debate over the idea, which is ridiculous.
Right, and that's honestly not even what's important. Like what he looked like when he was born has no bearing over anything.
Nope, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It's about love God and love people, and that's I think what it boils down to.
Totally agree.
I have a question. I'm trying to think of the best way to ask it, but are you, and this might not be the best way to ask it, but are you surprised at what people don't know about Jesus when you're teaching the kids in school? Because you have a lot of families that don't have a church affiliation, or their family doesn't go to church. What would you say the amount of students that you have that go to your after school Bible club that to your religious education classes that don't have a church? What is the percentage of those people? And
oh goodness!
And are you surprised at what some people don't know about the Bible or about Jesus or anything?
I have probably 75 to 80% that do not go to any other type of class or church aside from coming to mine.
Wow.
Yes, I was shocked when I started. I figured every kid would have
like 50%,
a church.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the majority do not go to a church. And no, I'm not surprised by people's lack of knowledge, because it seems like even though at this point we have the world at our fingertips, we can learn anything, but people don't care to. So, you know, it's not necessarily surprising to me that I love the fact that the kids are very open to learning, and they come up with all kinds of questions, which I think is fantastic. But no, I'm not surprised at what people don't know. There's lots of adults that I've gone to church with for 10 years that don't know quite a bit of the things that are true. So
I know it was amazing. My mom, I was talking to my mom last week, and her and my dad's church, they got a partnership with Cleveland Heights High School. Their church is right across the street, and they had this football player come in, an ex-NFL player. So they have a mentorship and a fellowship with the football team in particular. So they feed them before games and things like that. And they get a chance to talk. But so they had this event where the ex-NFL player came to minister to the kids.
Wow.
And, you know, the whole football team came over, they ate and had fun. Well, of course, when it's time for someone to, you know, give a prayer of salvation and invite people into the body of Christ, you know, the people start moving around and leaving and things like that. Well, actually, 15 football players gave their life to the Lord that day.
That's awesome.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And the thing about it is that I think a lot of times the church get disconnected on that follow-up of keeping the kids engaged. So I think that they're doing a good job at this particular church. They're doing a good job of it. But I've seen in the past where I think the follow-up was missing.
Yes, I totally agree.
Versus all the other distractions that young people have in their lives right now.
Yes.
There's a distraction. But if we can find new ways of that follow-up communication, I think it'll make a difference. And we also have to look at, I think we also tend to target people we want to draw in, when reality is we have to be willing to accept who God brings to
Yes.
us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, Lamar.
Definitely. And there's adults that believe after you've said that salvation prayer, that's it. You're good to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I said the prayer. I
I was
don't have
just
to do
about to bring
anything
that.
else now. I'm
Oh,
saved.
I was just about to say that. One thing I appreciate about you, Leanne, is that it's not just about getting saved. And
Right.
for a lot of people, um, religious education was about that here in Galleon. And my question is like, great, they gave their life to Christ, but now what? We need to be there for
Right.
the follow up, as you were saying,
The
Lamar.
follow-up.
And I know that
Yeah.
Leanne, you're in line with this. Is that we want to be there for kids when they're having problems, especially as the older they get and they have questions, as you mentioned, Leanne. They got questions, they got things going on at home. They might come from a home where this stuff doesn't get talked about, where they're not learning this stuff, where they're not learning about compassion and love, where they don't talk about, they don't go to church, so they're not learning these things. They're not talking about love and caring and helping others and serving people. So, that's got to be difficult. If you have a kid that's coming to an after school club and they're learning this stuff and they're getting it and they love it, and they go home and they're getting something else. Do you deal with that a lot, or do you
Absolutely.
do you see that conflict in kids where they're where they're coming from in their home lives is contrary to what you're trying to
Absolutely.
promote? How do you deal with that?
I've got multiple kids whose parents are in jail, and they're living either in a
Wow.
foster care situation or
Wow.
with their one set of kids is living with their great grandparents. And all I know is that when they're there with me, they feel loved. And like during
That's so great.
prayer,
That's so
I've
great.
got all of the kids, I've got 20 kids coming and like giving me a bear hug while we pray. They just love to be, loved on. And they enjoy being there because they feel loved and they feel cared for. And I'm sure the snacks don't hurt.
Now, what's
Of
good
course.
about what you said about how they love to be loved? I just had this conversation recently too, that what we see going on with our youth in a lot of situations is the lack of communication, the lack of love, and the lack of responsibility from parents. When I say that, people misinterpret. I'm not saying that parents don't love their kids. I said the lack of love, which means the depth of your love for your child. When I look at the Crumleys, the Crumley family, and their situation in Michigan, they interpreted. I think that I don't know the details, but what I see is there's a kid with issues, and they pacified him as their way of showing love. In reality, there was a lack of discipline, a lack of communication within that family. Because
Absolutely.
if that parent, I can't imagine me being with my mom at a meeting at school, then I turn around and go kill some people. I just can't imagine doing that.
No.
And I can't imagine my own kids doing that. And I say that because there was a depth of love between us, communication, and not only just that, my respect for them. I don't see kids respecting their parents
Oh gosh, no.
enough to say, that relationship is that important to me that I don't want to ruin it over me doing something stupid. That's what I don't see with our youth today. I mean, that goes for every background, every economic background, every educational background. There's no filter with that. It's like the spectrum is broad for how these kids are reacting.
And how much do you think that could be linked to our society of instant gratification, where everything is a moment to moment thing, and nobody's stopping and thinking about consequences or the future or anything of the sort? It's, I feel this right now, so I'm going to do this right now. Do you think that that's any relation to it? Or
but that starts at home. Starts at home. that starts at home. And like I said, I always use my own children for my example.
Hmm.
Was I a parent that was strict on some things? Yeah. Was I a parent that was passive on some things? Yes. But I look at the totality of it because I hear it from my own kids now, who's telling me, Dad, you know, before I did certain things, I thought about what you might do in that situation,
Hmm. That's
or
good.
That's
even
wonderful.
even in the midst of doing something wrong, they will refrain back sometime because it was like, wow, that wasn't good, or that's not going to be a good look for me later. Um, and I did the same thing in my situation growing up. I would think, man, how would my parents handle this? Or, man, do I want to do this to really make them look bad? I thought about that stuff. I
Hmm.
don't, and it's all because of the relationship with your parents. It's that relationship. It could be a single mom, it could be a dual household, mom and dad.
Yeah.
It still starts with that relationship. And I'm not taking anything away from single moms and dads, have a lot of responsibility, but I've seen it happen with single households where that relationship is there and the guidance is there for that child. It seems like it's missing, and we tend to pacify our kids with things and gifts and tablets and phones and computers that
Absolutely.
we're not
So
actually
we can
spending the
keep
time.
our own things going on and not have to worry
Exactly.
about it.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Definitely.
You see it happening in this. It's sad.
I have a question for Leanne. As thinking from the parents' perspective, um, you've been able to reach a lot of kids and touch them and to talk with them and to listen to them. What would you say that kids right now today, um, going to school, what are their needs? What their needs are? Sometimes there's been, I don't know, you've probably been there as well, but there's been times in my life when be like, I have no idea what my child thinks, or especially when they get into middle school and things. It's like they're like a foreign country to me. I don't even know where to begin with them.
Yes.
So like those parents that are out there and you're wondering, it's like, gosh, I wish I could have that relationship with my kid, or how do I, you know, how can I begin to have a deeper communicative relationship with my child when we just seem to be on different pages and different worlds sometimes.
I think that the most important thing is just the kids want to know that you're listening. They want to
Hmm.
know that you care and that you have an interest in what's going on in their lives.
Okay.
Like I had this little boy who he wanted me to pray that his brother would be nice to him.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so, I just kind of snuck it in there, and he came up to me after class, and he's in first grade, and he said, I really liked how you snuck that into prayer. He's like, thank you so much, and gave me a big hug. And he's not a hugging child. That's not his
Hmm.
personality. But all he wanted, me acknowledging that he said something and that I cared enough to say something. It was
Yeah.
huge for him. And ever since that day, first thing he does is run up and hug me. And
Hmm.
he appreciates that I cared. It's really that simple of just investing time and energy into getting to know your kids
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
getting to know what's important to them and how they feel about this or that. I really think
That's
that's
good.
what
That's
it
good.
breaks down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, Leanne, we want to thank you for being with us this morning. Thank you so much. I thought it was great and interesting to hear from
Yeah.
you and
Awesome.
to talk with you a little bit more in depth about things and from your perspective. And so, thanks so much for being here and for your time this morning. It's
Yes,
great.
thank
This is great.
you.
Did you want to
I
stick around
appreciate it.
for our other topics today, or did you got to go?
Sure. I have nothing going on.
Okay. What
If
we
you
got
don't mind, I'll
going?
stay.
Oh no, we don't. We always invite our guests to stay because we talk about current events and news and see if they want to join that conversation with us.
Absolutely. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
what we got, Darren?
So, looking at the list, this is one of the topics that I mentioned at the top of the show that kind of really bothered me that I heard about this week, and it's like, really, this is America, this is happening.
Mm.
And so apparently in southern Georgia there was a place that actually had people that were forced to work, in
Wow.
some cases under gunpoint. Now there's a local news story about this, so we're going to listen to this and then we're going to comment on this here. You know what? Where do I have it? I tell you what, you know what? Here it is. I'm sorry. Here it is. Here we are.
Tonight, we are learning more information about the USDA and what they're calling the biggest sting operation of labor trafficking in U.S. history, with victims found in the Southern District of Georgia. WSAV's Brian Gallagher joins us now after speaking with the top attorney on this case. And Brian, what can you tell us about this operation?
Well, Tina, it was a 6-year operation involving roughly 70,000 victims from across the country, with 100 of them located in the southern region.
This is probably the largest organization of law enforcement to go after this particular offense ever. So yes, it was notably significant.
24 defendants have now been indicted on federal conspiracy charges of human smuggling and labor trafficking.
The purpose of this criminal organization was to make money from the illegal activities, including mail fraud, forced labor, money laundering.
Victims working in terrible conditions on South Georgia farms.
The indictment alleges that this organization fraudulently used the United States H-2A visa program to smuggle foreign nationals from Central America into the United States under the pretext of being agricultural workers.
The visa promises agricultural jobs for those who can work under a sponsor. The sponsor is then supposed to provide payment, housing, transportation, and food.
The organization exploited these workers by, among other things, confiscating the workers' passports to prevent them from leaving or contacting law enforcement, underpayment, using violence and threats of violence to control the workers.
We're told that the operation has made more than $200 million off the illegal scheme. Acting U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, David Estes, acknowledges that it shouldn't have gotten this far.
They are being checked now. I mean, obviously, I think that this investigation has identified some things that need to be looked at, and hopefully that will take place.
We're told that investigations are currently ongoing in other parts of the country. Those indicted face several different charges, including conspiracy to commit mail fraud and conspiracy to engage in forced labor. Brian Gallagher, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Yeah, I'm looking this up. This is deep, man.
That's a huge operation. 6 years, 75,000 victims, millions of dollars were made. This is going on in America. How could we not know about this? How can we not see this happening?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is in Waycross, Georgia, where they were caught.
$200 million.
Yeah, 24. And think about it though, the people they caught, these people that they arrested, in my opinion, were probably the little people. Who are the ones that were funding this? That's what we don't hear about. Who funded this whole thing? Who is the ones paying for all those people to be smuggled into our country?
Exactly. We need to get the ringleaders, and we need to bust them, because it's just going to happen again. It's just going to happen again to more victims that they're going to take advantage of. And they always go after the people that are low on the scale that they can take advantage of. Migrants who are looking for work and they're desperate, and they're going to take advantage of them. And this is under the question of, really, this goes on in America? I just blown away.
There's a bigger organization behind all that, and there's big money that's behind that. And I look at this. I look at the human trafficking, like I look with the legal selling of guns, the illegal drug trade. They always catch the people that are actually doing the labor, the work part of the crime, and not those that are funding the crime. And a lot of these faces and names are unknown, but they can find. I'm sure if you can find a terrorist around the world on the other side of the globe looking through a camera with a drone and a remote controller, and somebody's guiding on a remote control, and you can kill that person.
You think you'd be able to
You
find
can
these
find
people?
out. You can find these people.
Who is
They don't want to
responsible
find
for
these people.
this?
They will bring down a lot of structure here that they don't want to do.
No, because they're probably rich and they pay a lot in taxes, I guess. Probably they don't
They're
pay a
not
lot in
paying. They're
taxes.
not paying taxes,
Probably,
but they funding these organizations, these other organizations.
you're right. What am I thinking?
The news
Paying
media,
taxes.
they're funding all this stuff. Yeah, this is crazy. But yeah, that's sad. That's sad.
I mean, we see this again where like companies are hiring illegal migrants or are hiring people who aren't supposed to be in the country, and then they're
Right.
blaming the workers. They arrest the workers, they'll go after the workers, but they don't go after the
Right.
company that hired them in the first place.
Right.
Stepping back, not quite as egregious, like forcing people to work. But I mean, if you're going to, why not go after the people that are hiring the
Right.
people who aren't supposed to be here? I mean,
Yeah.
how did that make sense, right? But no,
Right.
we go after the victims. We'll imprison the victims, and
Sad, man. Just sad. I was trying to look at some other video for this and see if I could find anything from the residents or the people from the community.
yeah, that's the other issue that I wanted to bring up is like, how can you not notice what's going on, or question in your mind, like, what's going on in your neighborhoods? Even do we even know? Like, I question like if I even know what's going on in our neighborhoods, Leon. I don't. It's like maybe I don't. Maybe I don't really know what's going on in our community.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure we don't.
Yeah.
I'm sure we have
Yeah.
no idea what's going on in most places. And I think people don't pay attention. As long as they're getting their goods, who cares about where they're coming from? Who cares if it's, little kids sewing your sneakers together? I got my
Mm.
shoes.
Yeah.
Sadly, that I think is how a lot of Americans view things.
Mm.
Yeah.
Greg says it's the American way. Is it the American way to look the other way?
So just
Is
look
it?
in a mirror at yourself.
No, the whole forced labor he's referring to with the American way. I mean, even with our prison
Absolutely.
systems, the prison system's the same way. I remember there was a issue with, this was back in the 90s. I think I read the story of the image of these people that were in gangs, and like these different gangs, Bloods and Crips and things. They were wearing
Yeah.
the saggy jeans. So in Oregon, there was the Oregon State Prison started making jeans,
Okay.
and they were oversized jeans. And so I forgot the brand name, but they were just basically making the jeans that emulated what these gang members were wearing
Huh.
to feed the communities.
Okay.
This was in the 90s, because that was a moneymaker for them, and they was using prison workers to do it.
Yep. I mean, that's all
know?
too common. Don't they still use prison workers to make their license plates? And
They make a lot of
Absolutely.
things, man. They make a lot of
I
things.
just got a new license plate
every-
this week, so I suppose that was made at some prison. I don't know.
I mean, every industry that's what they're doing. So what we got next, man?
Well, go ahead with this storm, the storm that happened.
Yeah, that kind of, like I said, I woke up this morning and it kind of touched my heart to hear so many people died. I'm waiting to hear what, not want to be political, I want to hear what Mitch McConnell has to say. That was his home state, but where's that video for that? Feared tornadoes. Yeah, here we
We
go.
believe our death toll from this event will exceed 50 Kentuckians, probably end up closer to 70 to 100 lost lives. Remember, each of these are children of God, irreplaceable to their families and to their communities. But we will make it through this. We will rebuild. We are strong, resilient people. And we're going to be there every step of the way. I'm going to be in Western Kentucky a little later today, as soon as it is safe to travel, to make sure people know that they are not alone, that this is one state standing strong with those that have been impacted.
Now in Kentucky, they're saying that this was a candle factory in Kentucky that was devastated by the storm, and then you have an Amazon
Okay.
facility that was
Okay.
in Illinois, and then a nursing home in Arkansas. So this
That's
was
a
a
wide
broad
range.
storm. Yeah, there's a lot of video of the storm itself,
Well,
just tornadoes and everything.
70 to 100 people is a large amount of people to die in an inland storm like that.
Yeah,
Usually it's like a hurricane that comes off of the coast or comes onto the coast. Um, so something like that happens in middle America, that's a lot of people that
yeah,
have been affected by um, that have been killed. So it's not
yeah,
just property damage, it's not just a loss of electricity for a day. It's life and death. So that is
yeah.
something for sure to pray about and maybe to look into to help out your fellow human beings during this time of giving. Um,
Yeah, that warehouse was 1.5 million square feet, the Amazon warehouse. And I'm not sure how destroyed it is, but wow, that's a big building. Like they said, the tornado in was it Monette Manor nursing home in Arkansas, killing one person, trapping 20 people inside as the building collapsed. So
oh,
after building collapsed, you're probably going to find more bodies, probably.
imagine
You
being those
know,
people. Yeah, gosh.
that's just. So the storm in Kentucky went through Bowling Green, Kentucky, near the Tennessee border, tearing off roofs of
Yeah.
homes, flinging debris in the roadways.
Hmm.
The GM Corvette assembly plant and the nearby Corvette Museum sustained light damage. I've seen that several times driving home. There's this
Okay.
big Corvette museum they have on the road there. So that sustained some damage there. But yeah, it was a wide storm, man.
One of the things that happened in Northeast Ohio caught our attention this week. Those of us on the show is shooting in Maple Heights. Not just that it was a shooting that's bad enough, but the people involved were teenagers, young teenagers. So the victim, a 14-year-old person, and the instigators were 12 and 13. So this is close to where we grew up, and we have a short story about that.
New developments this evening in another story. A 14-year-old boy is the latest victim of gun violence. He was killed in Maple Heights yesterday afternoon. And just hours ago, we have learned 2 kids, they are the suspects in this. News 5's Tracy Carlos bringing us up to speed this evening on all that we've learned.
Maple Heights police say a 12-year-old boy and a 13-year-old boy will now face charges in connection with the murder of a 14-year-old. Maple Heights police say Shashawn Anderson was shot yesterday afternoon. Police say it happened around 3:45 on Adams Street near Broadway Avenue. Police say multiple kids were seen running from the shooting. The Maple Heights School District confirmed Anderson was a student at the middle school. The district denied our request for an interview, but the superintendent emailed me this statement saying, quote, "This morning our community learned of the loss of one of our middle school students, Shashawn Anderson. Our counseling team has put a plan into place to provide support throughout the week to our students, staff, and families. Out of respect for the family and because this is an ongoing police matter, the district cannot speak on this or what may or may not be a part of this matter. At this time, we ask that you keep Shashawn's family in your thoughts and prayers." Right now, police say the 12 and 13-year-old boys are at the Juvenile Detention Center waiting to be charged. In Maple Heights, Tracy Carlos, News 5.
I got several
that's
things about this. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, what would you do with a 12 and 13-year-old in this case who committed this crime and it was not just an accident?
Well, I mean, they do need to be detained in a correctional facility, but I also feel that there should be counseling for these youth too, because not just because of what caused them to be in that situation, but the aftermath of what happened. This is an everlasting thought that's going to be in their mind for the rest of their lives. They will never be able to erase that image out of their minds.
No.
So that's a level of trauma that they need to have some type of counseling for. These are kids. I can't imagine next week you're going to just be fine. I just shot a guy. A grown person needs
It's hard
counseling,
enough
let alone
for
a kid.
it's hard enough for adults. It's hard enough for police officers who deal with these things or might have to deal with these things.
Yeah,
They have permanent trauma from
yeah.
situations where they're forced to use a gun. So
And
I can't
see,
imagine. I can't imagine. It's just tragic all around.
that's what bothers me about the Kyle Rittenhouse situation is being a minor. I'm watching this guy on TV interviews, strolling through town. I mean, there has to be a level of trauma that he deals with in his personal time, in this alone time by himself, not just shooting somebody, but the whole ordeal of what he dealt with, from being in that situation to going through trial to being acquitted. There's trauma there. There's no way that he can just roll through these interviews and smile at that young of an age. It's forced.
Yeah, he said he was having trouble sleeping.
Yeah, but how could you easily go on all these interviews? How could you do that as a minor?
That's why I think
Right.
that he's been promoted and propped up and coached.
Yeah,
I think.
but where's the parental guidance? Now, I've had this conspiracy of my own a while back by saying that he was possibly paid, after the fact, because we know that he had a lot of financial support from a legal defense standpoint. But how much money did he gain during that whole ordeal as money of his own? Because I'm like, where's the mom? Where's the dad's protection? Yeah, but I would. I mean, that's the only reason why the parents would be quiet right now. I can't imagine me not wanting to protect my child, whether he was a minor or a full adult as they are now. Still want to protect them from the scrutiny and the public attacking or just being in that public light. I would want to protect them as a parent. For their parents not to be doing that, I'm like, he must have gotten really paid really good because they're just too quiet as a parent, in my opinion.
Is it an access problem? Is it an access gun problem? Things like this.
Yeah, no, definitely. It is an access problem. Definitely. Absolutely. Wherever they got it from. We don't know where they got the gun from. I haven't heard yet if it was from a parent's home or did they find it on the street? Did they buy it? I have no idea where they got this gun from. We haven't heard that part of the news yet. But yes, it's definitely an access problem.
And then we know it's a parenting issue then. Are we agreeing that it's a parenting issue as well? Access in parenting? Okay.
I wouldn't say the access to the gun was parenting. Their behavior was parenting.
Okay.
Because of the fact that they were in that position in the first place. Say it this way. There were 7 kids, from what I understood, was running through the parking lot when the gun went off and one got shot. Was it an accidental shooting? I don't know. Was it intentional? I don't know. But who had the gun in their hand and the ones that didn't have the gun in their hand? If they all found it at the same time, they all come and access at the same time, I don't know. But one of them took ownership of taking the gun. Some of them knew better to take the gun. Some of them were just followers. We don't know. So the one who had the gun in their hand, what made them feel that it was okay? That was the lack of parenting.
Okay.
In my opinion.
I think it's difficult because peer pressure and I know I made decisions that were absolutely not what my parents would have wanted for me. My parents were great parents, but in situations that I was in as a youth, I might have done the wrong thing, done something stupid. It wasn't because I didn't know better. It was because I got caught up in the moment. And at this point, there's a lot of the hip hop culture. A lot of it is gang music at this point, and it's all about guns, and it's those kids are really looking up to those things and thinking that's what makes me cool. That's what makes me somebody. So I think it's extra hard to parent in this day and age because we're competing against so many other outside forces.
So pop culture is partly to blame then.
Absolutely.
Is it any more dangerous? is music any more dangerous than the video games that they play?
So video games, I feel like you understand you're playing a game. A lot of like the Chicago rappers and stuff like that, like that's their real life. They're for real. Like
Yeah,
they really
yeah,
are doing these things.
yeah.
So
I don't know. You'll have to go ahead.
I think that that music a lot of times it influences more than a video game because people look at
Yeah.
that differently. That is
Hmm.
real life
Yeah.
to some
Hmm.
people.
Then you break
I'm
down
not
the
blaming you.
aspect of no, but then you break down the aspect of like I'm not gonna debate the fact that you said that yeah, some of these artists that's their life. But then you break down of why is this their life?
Is
What
that
is the
really true
breakdown?
then, Lamar? Because I don't
What
know. Lamar and Leanne,
no,
you know more
I'm not
about it
saying
than I.
all
Is
I'm
that
not
really
saying
true that
all
this is their lifestyle?
some and for some yes, for
Absolutely.
others no.
Okay.
It depends on the artist because some people are emulating, some people are just saying what they think they know. Some people are
Okay.
telling you what's real on the streets. But then if a person is telling you in the story that this is their life, break down why is this their life? Do you think that I look at it this way, do you think a drug dealer on the street who carries guns chooses to decide this is the life I want to live, or is it a life that came about by circumstance?
I
Hmm.
think that both are true because for a long time I thought, well, you know right from wrong, just don't do that. But
Yeah,
I've come back to realize like you don't always have a choice. If your mom is an addict and your dad's not in the picture and this is what you've got as your family and your community, that it's not as easy as just, oh, okay, I'll go work at McDonald's until I can move out of this area. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's a conscious choice of, oh, I'm going to get a gun and be a drug dealer. It's just what role you fall into based on where you
yeah.
are.
So
Hmm.
that's what I'm saying. You
Okay.
look at the circumstance, and that's why I brought the video game aspect up. Although you say we know it's a game, but if you realize that some of these people are really that caught up into these first person shooter games that it is their reality in their
Hmm.
mind. They think they know how to handle a gun. They
Oh,
Hmm.
think that
absolutely.
they can do these things. And that's why I use that back and forth because you can go to movies, TV shows, violence is all around us.
Yes.
So I wouldn't target just saying it's music because it's a variety of things that I think that are influencing our youth from a violent
Absolutely.
perspective. And I remember when Grand Theft Auto first came out.
Okay.
I'm a big. I haven't played. I'm not that big a video game player as I used to be. I mean, like as of like 2 years ago, my Xbox was incompatible with the new game, so I stopped playing.
Okay.
But I'm a video game player. But I remember when Grand Theft Auto came out, and my son was a teenager. This is where I'd say parenting comes in. I wanted to get the game because I thought it was. I heard it was the new thing. It was the rave. Everybody wanted this game, so I went and bought it.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, and me and my son is getting in front of the TV, and I hear this guy using all this profanity.
Hmm.
Mhm.
You know, you're calling this prostitute on the street a name. I mean, it's like real life. Everything that you see in the streets.
Right.
And I was like, no, we can't keep this game.
Yeah.
I thought about the influence that he has. He can see it in the street himself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you don't need a video game influencing that with you. So what I did was I took it back to the store.
Yeah.
Some years later, I remember him and his cousins were playing this video game. No, I take it back. They were playing at night. The cousins were there all together at night at the house. I woke up the next morning and I got on a video game. So I went to go put my game in and I wanted to play and I pulled it out. It was another edition of the Grand Theft Auto. Like this was some years later. And I'm like, so I took the game and I hid it. That was me saying, I don't approve of this in my house.
Hmm.
Now, you're going to sneak out and play. Kids are going to be kids.
Yeah.
But because I knew the influence of that game, I didn't want to influence my kids with it. Again, like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
Leanne, we're gonna do things. We're gonna mess up in life. I'm in total agreement with that. But even in that being said, because of good parenting, don't we have boundaries? Even yourself, didn't you have boundaries? You might have
Absolutely.
messed up, but you knew how far to go. There was a
Absolutely.
boundary, even with peer pressure. There was a
Yeah.
But I
boundary.
had good friends also. And
Yeah.
my parents were very on top of who we were allowed to be, you know, hanging out with.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I think nowadays that's a little bit trickier. A lot of households aren't two parents, so you don't have four sets of eyes, you know, on or four eyes, I guess would be on the child,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, at all times.
Yeah.
And kids have more freedom at this point. And I think that those things, even if you have those parameters and boundaries set at home, I don't think you have more people saying, "Oh, that's stupid and that doesn't matter. We can do whatever we want."
Yeah.
I think
Right.
Okay.
I think that's changed a lot since I was a kid.
Right. Craig brought a comment up here. Are kids mimicking pop music, or is pop music projecting established culture?
Both.
Good
Both.
question.
Both. It's both.
The music. Think about with the music.
I mean, it's got to come
The
from
music
somewhere.
isn't
And
creating.
they
The
don't
music
invent
isn't
it.
creating. But the
Right.
music isn't creating the culture. He's right about that. Music is telling you what's happening in real life.
Hmm.
Oh, well, I think it goes
That
both
is-
ways.
It does.
Because what you can't think of any music that created the issue. The issues were already there. Whether you're talking about drugs, whether you're
Mhm.
talking about guns, gangs, prostitution, the issues were there. They're telling you what's there. Now, if they're actively participating in it, that's another story. They're just as guilty as the issue itself, you know. But the issues are there. You know what I'm saying? We have to start
Okay.
controlling and
I think we need to
and
deal with
fixing
the
the
issues
issue.
that are there, and
Exactly, I
not to
agree.
sort of, and not to shelter our kids, and not to sort of deny that it's there. It's like, well, my kids wouldn't do drugs, or you always hear that in commercials and things like that. Well, guess what? They might be doing drugs. So
This is a good point
Craig has
here.
a good comment here. I think artistic expression is an easy way to explain it, but it's more of a scapegoat. Let's be honest, it's the people around you that influence you most, and it starts with family. Mhm.
That's what I've been saying from the beginning. That's where I said it starts at home. Starts at home.
I've been kind of people have accused me of being kind of a hypocrite with violence, because I do play violent video games, but usually,
Do you?
well,
Do you?
I
Demon?
played first person shooters.
What?
So usually what they are is like a sci-fi or like a fantasy type of setting. So it's things like Grand Theft Auto that have a realistic depiction of what the world is like. For me, that bothers me, and I don't like that stuff. So if you're like for some, we know what it is. We know that if it feels real, if it feels like real life, it feels like something you could see on the streets, then that's different than if you are like some sort of futuristic super soldier and you're battling aliens. That's not really based in reality. So I have the ability to sort of disconnect and sort of differentiate, I think, in my mind, is like, what am I doing? I'm playing a game. I'm doing it to blow off steam, or just relax, or just to kind of unwind, or whatever it is. It could be cathartic or something. But I think there is an issue of violence in what we see on TV, and we take it in like candy, really. Like we watch these superhero movies, and there's a lot of violence, but for some reason, like sex, that's bad. We don't want to show that. We don't want to show physicality in that way, but we have no problem with watching blood and guts and people being killed on screen. I think that's a bit of a disconnect that we have in our society. I know we're far away from what our original topic was, but I just
No, but it all goes. This all goes into understanding these young people, like a 12 and a 13-year-old who shot another person, and from what I understand, I guess they were all friends or all in the same group of kids, or, what happened? It wasn't an accident. They were running with the gun. There was an accident. I don't know. But it's disturbing to have these young people with the gun. It's disturbing, And then for us, like you said, Darren, that's close to home for us, It's interesting.
Let's see. Here's one thing that was brought up a couple of 10 or 15 minutes ago. Greg said, I was wondering if I can get your opinion on what this is, either Greg or Marz. You have an Africana way of living in community, of being in community, I think he means. What does that mean? What do you think that
bring
means?
That back up. Bring that back up. I'm trying to bring that back up.
He says,
I'm trying to see, Max, you have,
I think he means
Mars, that's what
Mars.
Mars. You have an
Africana
Africana
way of living in
I'm
community.
not sure exactly. I mean, I know what Africana means, African way of perspective, but I'm trying to understand what he's saying in that. If you can clarify that, Greg,
Okay.
or give me some better
I thought
understanding.
maybe you
of
could
what
help
you're saying.
illuminate that for us. But
No, I mean, I'm trying to see where I know what the words are saying, but I'm trying to put it in context with the conversation. And I'm not sure what context he was talking about. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, you have Kim Porter trial. Can you bring that up for us, sir?
Where's that video at for Kim Porter? Yeah.
All right, please be seated.
The trial of former police officer Kim Potter, accused in the shooting death of Daunte Wright earlier this year, continued Friday with one of the officers at the scene testifying he was holding Wright's arm, trying to handcuff him before he was shot. Major Michael Johnson said he entered the car from the passenger side as Wright started pulling away from another officer. He said he put his hands on the gear shift and keys to prevent Wright from trying to drive away. When the 20-year-old got back into the car, Officer Johnson grabbed his arm, but testified a short time afterwards he heard Potter's voice.
What did you hear Officer Potter say?
I heard something to the effect of, "I'll tase you."
And what happened after that?
I heard the verbal command of taser, taser, taser.
And then what happened?
And then I heard a loud pop.
Johnson said he let go of Wright's arm out of concern over getting in the way of the taser probes. Body camera video from Johnson showed the car then drove off as Potter screamed she shot Wright.
Put your hands up!
Thursday's testimony focused on what happened in the moments after the shooting, when Wright drove off and ended up crashing his car into another vehicle. The jury heard from Wright's girlfriend, Elena Albrecht Payton, who was a passenger in the car.
I was the only one who had everybody there. I was trying to help him. And I was trying to push on his chest and call his name. And he wasn't answering me. He was just gasping, like just take breaths of air. So
the defense pressed her over Wright driving away, but she said his hands were never on the wheel and the car only moved because his foot was on the gas. Katie Bryant, Wright's mother, was one of the first to testify when prosecutors began to call witnesses Wednesday. She said she spoke to Wright after he had been pulled over and heard an officer tell him to step out of the car before the phone disconnected. When she finally reconnected via video call, it was to the sound of Payton screaming and images of her son after being shot.
That I wanted to go comfort my baby. I wanted to hold him. And I wanted to protect him because that's what mothers do. You protect your children. You make sure that they're safe.
During cross-examination, Bryant said she knew her son did not have a driver's license, but did not know he had a prior arrest warrant or had used marijuana. In opening statements Wednesday, Minnesota Assistant Attorney General Aaron Eldridge said Potter had violated her training by not recognizing she pulled her firearm from her right side when her taser was at her left.
We trust them to know wrong from right and left from right. This case is about an officer who knew not to get it dead wrong. But she failed to get it right.
Her lawyers argued it was a mistake.
She's a human being, but she had to do what she had to do to prevent a death to a fellow officer, too.
They told the jury Potter was inconsolable, with body cam video showing Potter on the ground. Her defense argued Wright had tried to flee and Potter had attempted to use her taser to protect then Sergeant Michael Johnson, who was inside Wright's car.
And all Mr. Wright had to do was stop. He was told he was arrested on a warrant. He resisted. She said, "I'll tase you." And all he had to do was surrender.
The defense questioned Johnson Friday on what could have happened if the car had taken off with him inside, with the officer saying he could have been dragged and potentially injured.
Based on these videos and the conduct of Dante Wright, as far as you're concerned, and you were there, Kimberly Potter would have had a right to use a firearm, right?
Yes.
On Thursday, Officer Alan Salvosa, who responded to the crash, testified he was not aware of Wright's condition when he arrived.
Did you have any information about the medical condition of anyone in that Buick?
No, sir, not as I arrived initially. The windows were rolled up, it was tinted, I couldn't see inside.
A motion for a mistrial was also denied Thursday when the defense argued prosecutors were spending too much time presenting prejudicial evidence such as photos of Wright's body. While denying the mistrial, the judge advised the state must avoid showing the jury duplicate autopsy photos. The case itself is focused on two charges, first and second-degree manslaughter. Prosecutors need to prove Potter acted recklessly for the first charge and prove culpable negligence for the second. The state does not need to prove she intended to kill. If found guilty, she could face just over 7 years for the first charge and 4 on the second. All eyes will be on the trial once again next week as Potter herself is expected to take the stand. Sean Preble, Global News.
Wow, that's a lot right there. You know.
It's horrifying.
So what's your feedback on some of this?
I think that it's horrifying, and I don't necessarily think that she meant to shoot him, but like, why is it okay to stop someone and pull a gun? I don't care if there's a warrant. Like, why? I don't understand the urgency of it. Like, why? I don't understand why it has to go that way. Send him a summons in the mail and have him appear for his warrant. Why do you have to shoot at him? A taser or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, I figure that I look at it the same way. If he had known to be a violent criminal, a person who's violent, you had already ran his plates. You already knew he had a warrant.
Right.
And you already knew that his license was expired, didn't have a license. You knew these things about him, and you already had his address of where he lived.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that it wasn't necessary. No, even if he had taken away, you could have caught other cars to block off traffic. Possibly, I'm not sure. I'm not an officer, but I think there's other ways that they could have handled that. The other side of that factor is the fact that whether she meant to shoot him or not, it was negligence on her part.
Absolutely.
Negligence
100%.
comes. There's a consequence and accountability that goes with negligence. I think that I think they're going to find her guilty. I don't think that she's going to do a whole lot of time. In my opinion, I don't think she's going to do a lot of time. But it's disturbing. And then the other side of the factor is, why are people? I mean, I know why, but that's the conversation that needs to be had. Is why are people running from the police officers? Not the ones that are in the midst of a crime. I'm talking about something like this, a traffic stop.
Right.
Why do people run? Just because an officer says stop, why are people running? That's a bigger conversation. And
Absolutely.
I think people literally are fearful of the police right now. I really
Definitely.
don't. They're fearful of the police. They don't want to get caught. They don't want to get stopped. They don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
Especially if they know there's been a violation. They are in violation. Like he's driving without a license. He knows he's wrong.
Right.
He knows he's probably had a warrant out, whether it was violent or not.
I'm sure.
He was scared, I think, and that's why he ran. And people like the defense said, why not just turn yourself in? And why don't you just stop? People are in the moment, just like the officers in the moment. And we were just talking about the Kim Potter trial there, Darren.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were just saying that we didn't believe that it was necessary for her to pull a gun out for somebody who was known to be nonviolent. And I think they were just scared and ran. He was scared when he ran.
I agree. I don't think she should have pulled anything out. And this is a tragic thing, and you can tell she feels bad, but she still is in the wrong. And
She still killed somebody.
Yeah. So, these things are coming. There's a reckoning coming for these things that we heard about, and we kind of other things happened, and now that we have the trials for these. Ahmaud Arbery is the other one that we saw something happened, and then months passed, and now we're finally having the trial about it. So it's in the news again, and it's like, oh yeah, you remember this? Okay, well here's the trial about it, and do we think justice will be served? Is the question I have for you.
I think she's gonna be found guilty, but I don't think that I don't think she's gonna get like a maximum sentence type thing.
Okay. What will she get?
I don't know, but I know that there was negligence,
and
there's a consequence for negligence. There's a consequence for negligence. Now,
especially
what is that
if you're in the
going to be?
position.
I don't know. What was that?
Especially if you're in the position as an officer, your job is to protect and serve. Like you have a higher standard that you should be held to.
Yes.
As far as knowing if you're pulling out a real gun or a taser, like that blows my mind.
Well, you're not going to remember also, Kim Potter was a trainer. She trained officers in exactly what she just did. She trained officers in that. That's what made it really bizarre.
Kind of scary.
Well, you know what it also shows? It shows that regardless of your level of training, that you are capable of not following your own training.
Of course.
You're not
in the moment,
capable in the moment. So that's what brings back the whole thing about how do an officer respond to a crime scene? What is your mindset? What are your biases? What are you thinking prior to that traffic stop? You know how if you're in a car, because I'm not sure if she was by herself or not, sometimes it may be that this person over here might be the best person to address this issue. Let me stand back and be backup or take cover, be the backup person. Everyone's not capable of handling the conversation all the time.
Okay.
Although you're both officers and you should be, but that doesn't mean one isn't better than the other at addressing the issue.
Okay.
Right.
And I think ego's getting away also when it comes down to policing.
Interesting.
The ego's getting away. She's a female. I'm not saying anything against female officers, but just like any other female in a position of leadership, a lot of times you have to always be on guard to prove your leadership. And
interesting.
She was the only female there. Was that the situation? I'm not sure. But she clearly pulled out a taser versus her gun. I mean, pulled out her gun versus pulling out the taser, which was clearly a violation when she called taser and pulled out her handgun.
Right.
Greg says they protect property and serve property owners rather than people. Police do. So in some cases, that's true, and it makes you scratch your head and wonder. I go back to, was it last week or the week before, someone was it Seattle who was shot because he had shoplifted. The guy in the wheelchair who was shot in the back 9 times, who had been in the store, had shoplifted and was going into another store, not listening to a police officer. And you're like, well, did it deserve that? No,
No, I didn't.
obviously not. The guy took something. Does that mean he should lose his life moments later? No.
No, I don't agree.
So that's a clear situation. Well, why not pull a taser? Why not
Yeah.
pull a taser? I don't understand. Why does a gun have to be the go-to?
Yeah, I agree.
And it's
Agree.
not even a spur of the moment, split second decision either. He was rolling away from you. And so, I mean, he had a knife, but he was rolling away from you. So it's not like your life was necessarily threatened to the degree where you needed to pull a gun and fire.
Right.
And fire it. So I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Why are they going into these situations so on guard already?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
like
you
maybe
have to be on guard though, as an officer. You have
the
to be on guard.
police. I mean, I understand that, but why do you assume that you're going to have to shoot somebody or it's going to be, you know what I mean? Why not assume it's going to be a normal conversation? And maybe if you're looking at it like that, that would keep the other side from getting excited as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like you're saying, how you approach it.
The reaction.
Right. Then if an officer comes aggressive, how can the suspect be calm? You know, you're slamming somebody on the ground or you handcuff somebody or you have your gun out and they say, don't move. How do you not move?
Right.
You know, how do you not move? You know, you pull a gun out, I'm like, you know, you don't know what to do. You know,
absolutely.
You just it's a reaction and you get shot because it said you shouldn't have moved. How do you not move? How do you have me handcuffed on the ground sometime?
I would
and
be
my face
freaking
is
out
in the
if
dirt,
a police officer
and I
had a gun in
can't
my
fight
face.
for
So
you're in a fight for your survival. You think you're handcuffed or you're in a prone position where you can't move, and you're like, I gotta get loose. That's the argument. But man, this is going forever.
Well, I just want to mention one thing on a positive note. Speaking of reactions and police reactions, I did see a good video recently in the last few weeks where somebody called the police because kids were playing basketball in the streets. And so the police showed up and started playing basketball with them. So, I mean, that's a situation where the police officer could have said, all right, kids, you need to get off the streets, and could have gotten aggressive. I'm not saying that he would have shot him. It was a he. I'm not saying that he would have shot the kids, but still, that's an example of how do you react? Do you come into a situation assuming bad things, like you said, Leanne, or do you come into a situation like these are kids, okay? They're playing. What are they doing? They're playing basketball. Are they hurting anything? No. So is it a big deal? No. So there you go. That's you enter into a situation and you're like, what does this require?
Yeah.
That's what I would like police to think about. What does this require you to do?
That's all about reform, right? That's the reform of the police reform. It's not about dismantling the police, taking it apart. It's about redesigning a construct that has shown to be ineffective.
Yes.
Through history, it's been ineffective. But we're coming around. We're over time right now. But I want to say thank you to Leanne. And before you leave, I'd like to get your bottom line for today. What is your bottom line for today?
Oh, goodness. My bottom line for today is love God and love people. And do what you can to make the world a better place and be accountable for your own actions. And that's that.
What about you, D-Man?
Excellent stuff. Sometimes the simplest messages are the best messages. So, Leanne, thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for being here and really appreciate it. It was a great conversation, great show today, both of you. We talked a little bit before we on the air, then a little bit at the beginning about Christmas and about joy and about, for me, it seems like something's missing this year for me. So, my message is a message that I'm going to try to do, is to try to reach for joy, to try to do things that you enjoy, to try to appreciate life and appreciate blessings, whether that's family, friends, to appreciate the blessings of, you know, of abundance, to appreciate the blessings of life, of freedom, and not get caught up in all the rhetoric and all the spin of people telling you what you should and shouldn't feel, and who to hate and who not to, you know, who to hate. And
Right.
so
It's good. It's good. I want my bottom line is I had a bad week of communication this week. Not really communication from my end, but I would say the last 2
I'm
weeks.
sorry, man. It's my fault.
No. It's been a lot of bad communication where I'm not as effective as I could be because of the information I receive. That makes sense? Like if someone communicates to me better, I can be a better service to them. And that's what I did with mainly at work. Say it that way. It was a work issue. For the last 2 weeks, I've seen these. So I've been really crying out like better communication. So I want to say that that's my bottom line, is that we all need to communicate better with one another so we can better understand how to serve one another, how to understand one another, and how that we can move forward and finding common ground with each other. And lastly, I want to just give my wife a shout out, telling her I love her and that I wish her a healthy recovery because she had surgery this week. And so I'm looking for a healthy recovery for her, and that, you know, she's doing good. Don't get me wrong, but I just want to give a public shout out to her to say, you know, I love you. I'm wishing you a healthy
Cheryl,
recovery.
we're praying for you, Cheryl. So
Absolutely.
get better.
Yeah, with that, I catch y'all next week.
All right,
Have
guys.
a great week.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
support of
guys.
the show. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Take care.